Hey guys, this is Al again. I just wanted to give a quick update video on this 1996 Bentley Continental. From the last video, and if you guys had watched the last video, you would have seen the update. I had concerns about the way that this car was braking. I thought that the brake pads were worn down to the metal. So I had to be really gentle in driving, and it now makes sense why this car was in a wreck, because the brakes were absolutely non-functional. It had zero confidence in it. So I took the wheel off right now, and you can see that the actual pads have a decent amount of meat on them. Same with the this side as well, but if you look carefully, there's grease all over the pad. So there's something going on over there, and I suspect that there's a hydraulic leak. You can see, on the caliper itself, there's a bunch of green fluid, which is the LHM, I guess, fluid. And look at that over here. Look at that over here. It's just grime. But all of that stuff, if you put my finger on it, see that? See that? That's just grease. Let me do it again with I'll say a clean finger, but cleanish finger. Run it across. See that? So yeah, the brakes are greasy. And because the brakes are greasy, this thing won't stop. So I think I need to go and start figuring out what's going on with the calipers, and both calipers have a fair amount of grease on them now. I don't know whether the seals are gone or whether the hose is weeping. It doesn't look like the hose itself is weeping, but who knows. No, it looks okay. It looks okay. So that hose looks okay. This has a bypass hose. So I think these two calipers have to come off. I'm going to go and inspect the other side, and once we see what's going on, I think it's just order a seal kit and have them resealed. But yeah, I mean, this is this is pretty diabolical. Like, look at that. Look at that. So let me turn the wheel around a little bit. You can see more of it. Sorry. So you can see, like, all on across the back of it, all of this stuff. This is all grease. So definitely not good. Definitely a good reason why this car doesn't stop. So I'll pull the other wheel off and see what's going on. I guess this car has those funky active shocks as well. But I'll pull the other wheel off and see what's going on, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so coming back to the other side, I can still see grime. You can see grime over here, but it's definitely not wet. So that could just very well be just regular grime, Brake pads, again, have plenty of meat on them. Move this camera. I'm holding the camera, it's kind of awkward. Brake pads have plenty of meat on them. The disc looks dry. There's no lip on it. It looks like it's been recently surfaced. Everything on this side looks okay, except just a little bit dirty. I'm gonna just basically take some brake clean to both sides and try to clean some of this crap off. At least that way it'll help me, try to figure out where the leaks are coming from. But this side seems like it's bone dry. Now, I didn't feel any kind of brake balancing problems when I was driving the car. I mean, it didn't feel like it was off balance. It just felt like it had very little by way of brakes. But we'll figure it out. So if I'm pulling the caliper off, I'm not going to do it today, for the simple reason that You know, I'd like to read up on what's going on before I actually go out and you know, start taking things apart. I just don't think that's a smart way of doing things. So everything looks okay from here. I think what I'm going to do next is put the car up in the air and just inspect the underneath, because I haven't really looked underneath this car to see what's going on there. I'll give you guys an update. Alright, so quick look underneath. Everything's relatively dry. Doesn't look too bad. There's a little bit of weeping right there on the power steering rack, but the other side is pretty dry. The boots look like they're in pretty good shape. Looks almost like a new rack, to be honest with you. I mean, given the mileage, this car's got more than 70,000 miles on the clock. You know, there's a lot of things on this car that make me think that somebody's gone through it at some point. Everything looks good as far as the accumulators, but I have a question. So another thing that makes me think the brake pressure might not be the same is if the accumulators are incorrect. So maybe they used the suspension accumulators instead of the brake accumulators, and I can't tell the difference between these two. They look exactly the same. So I'm wondering whether that could be a problem, and if it's a problem, how do I determine whether I have the right accumulators or not? So I'm looking for input there, and I'd be grateful if you guys could give me your thoughts, all you guys experts. There's a little bit of oil on the is that the transmission, I guess, or the back of the engine. I can't really. Oh, it's the transmission bell housing. A little bit of oil underneath the torque converter cover. Sorry about that, guys. And the AC compressor went off, so I didn't want to talk while it was running. Again, accumulators are there. They're both dry, but they look the same, and I don't know whether they're supposed to be different. I do understand that they are supposed to be different. I can't tell if this is a brake accumulator or a suspension accumulator, but that might be the lack of pressure. Cross member is a little bit wet, and so is the torque converter cover for the transmission. So I'm guessing that there's a slight fluid leak from somewhere, but it doesn't look too bad. The pan looks in very clean condition, so I'm guessing that the transmission was serviced recently, because this is, by all accounts, like super clean. Exhaust has a huge catalytic converter, but nothing much more to say about that. Let me get underneath and walk backwards. Let me see. So everything else looks fine over here. The drive shaft boot is in nice shape. Everything else seems to be okay. U-joints, everything seems to be okay, clean. Fuel pump looks fine, filter looks fine. Hoses look like they're in okay shape. Nothing really to shout home about. Boots are in nice shape. Everything else seems okay, except there's a little bit of grease on those. I don't know what they are. They look like miniature shock absorbers, I guess, for the suspension. Don't know what they're called. But everything else, you know, looks okay. It doesn't look too badly. So if you guys can answer my question regarding the brake accumulators, I'd be infinitely grateful. Alright guys, I wanted to give you an idea of how bad these brake pads are. So I mean, this the grease is how oily it is. So I'm guessing this is all LHM grease, because it looks kind of green. But this is, you know, I just shot this with brake clean. It looks like super clean. Then this side is dirty. You can see how oily it is. If I get some brake clean. Stand back a little bit. Take wet cloth. And you can see how bad this is. Like this is what clean brake disc should look like, and this is how, you know, slimy this stuff is. So, you know, clearly there's a problem here, and if it's, you know, it's not brake fluid, it's that hydraulic oil that's probably causing this thing not to want to basically stop. So I'm going to go clean it up, and then I might just run the engine and see if I can see where the leak's coming from, if it's from the inside of the pistons, or if it's you know, from a fitting, a hose fitting or something like that. So more to come in a little bit. Thank you. Alright guys, I pulled off the back wheel just to make sure that everything is fine, and it looks like this is where I'm hearing my brake pad binding, you know, sorry, my brake grinding. You can see that the brake pad on this side is very, very, very thin. The caliper doesn't, the rotor doesn't look like it's got much of a lip, but on the other side it's really, let me see if I can, you know, it's really down to the metal, and the piston's all the way extended, so you can see. And I don't know whether you can see this side, but the rotor on this side has got a lot of grooves. So this is where I'm hearing it. I'm definitely going to have to order new rear pads. The front pads seem okay. I'm noticing a little bit of weeping on the shock, but that's about all I'm seeing here on this side. So I'm not going to bother taking off the other wheel, because, you know, if I'm going to order brake pads, I'm going to order them from both sides. Calipers look okay. They're not dirty, and they're not leaking in any way, but they're you know, they're you know, needing new pads for sure. So I'm going to get that taken care of, and order some new pads for this old beast. Just for the reference, that's the part number on the caliper. I don't know whether that's going to buy anybody anything, but here you go. Alright guys, I'm done for today. Thank you.